happy Sunday morning, everyone.
We're back for another session.
We are back. We're back again with some fantastic speakers and some familiar faces, are we not?
Yes, we are. Return guest Isidro is with us, and we have with us also Alberto, Conde, and Rosenberg. And what are we going to talk about, Matt?
So the theme for today is actually just talking about investment and talking about how large corporates are sort of looking at this current climate we're in, and also from Isidro in terms of how the future looks like from his perspective, from the Commission's perspective. And before we get going, we have an exciting day for you because this afternoon we'll be back within 30 minutes. Actually, we'll be speaking to some mayors, which are leadership of EU mayors. Interesting session coming a little bit later. Then this afternoon at 2 p.m. you don't want to miss. We have the CEO and founder of Prezi, which you may well have used, who'll be joining us to give us a live demo and talk us through that startup journey, and then some small success stories.
Yeah.
From the academic side and the business and public sectors working together. And then the finale of today is, of course, the closing remarks at 6 p.m. on this channel, EUvsVirus Facebook page and the European Commission's Science and Innovation page. But first things first, my name is Matt C. Smith, and this is coming at you live from our studio in Oslo, Norway. Now, let's get into the session, Isidro, I think.
Yes, and let's start with our favorite return guest,
Our
Isidro.
favorite guest. We keep saying
again,
that.
yeah, we keep saying no, we can't see it. Anyhow, Isidro Laso Palesteros, Deputy Head of the Unit Innovation Ecosystem European Commission. My first question to you today is, what are the latest trends and directions when it comes to development and investments in Europe?
Well, I think we have to separate. Well, first of all, thank you for hosting me again, Erta and Matt, and thank you to all the other speakers who are being with me today. Your question about the latest trends in terms of investments, I think we need to separate in two sides. One is before the coronavirus, and another is afterwards. And we need to be aware of that, and I think everyone needs to be aware of that, but also public administrations. You know, they are putting around 30 to 40% of all the money invested in startups is coming from public administrations. I mean, the money, the LPs of most of the VCs are public, the European Investment Fund and other governments. A huge amount of money that comes from the public sector. And it comes from here because it doesn't come from the private sector. We would like that comes from the private sector. And that's something that was improving, let's say, in the last 2 years. There was a big improvement and more investment from the private sector, corporates, some pension funds were starting also to invest in the VCs, so that the VCs could invest in return in the startups. And this was a very good trend that after the whole 2 year 2020 and beginning 2021. And now we are after the virus, we're in a completely different situation. And here we are talking about the anecdotal evidences. So the anecdotal evidences I'm getting from startups, from entrepreneurs, is that the tap of money for them is being stopped, it's been closed, and or even worse, in some conditions that the investors are taking advantage of the situation for putting very bad conditions to the entrepreneurs. No? So this is something that I think the public administration should be aware of that, so that we spend our money in a wise way. The assumptions we have when we were preparing the budget for this year and for the next years was based on 2020. And in that case, we were focusing the public money more in the scale-up phase, so investments above 10 million euros, because below 10 million euros, there was quite a very good situation already in Europe, so we were focusing there. So I think before doing the normal thing that will be continuing as we had planned already, I think we should sit down and think and analyze, because we might need to pump in money in the early stages as well, in some cases. And the problem here for the public administrations is that normally we act based on evidence-based policy making. And here, as you can imagine, there are not the studies, or not serious studies about the situation. And we might need to act based on anecdotal evidences, and there is a risk there, of course. But certainly the situation has changed dramatically from before to after the virus.
We've seen some local municipalities and large-scale governments putting some release funds, of course, towards the startup ecosystem, right? Helping them even pay overheads, office rents, and things like that. What is the European Commission doing? I know that obviously the Horizon 2020 is coming to an end, of course. What's the follow-up to that, and has that been changed based on the current climate?
So the continuation to Horizon 22, not continuation, the next stage is Horizon Europe. And here we were putting the focus very much on innovation, disruptive innovation, and on missions. So a mission is very much what we have been doing with the EUvsVirus. No, people motivated with a clear purpose. So we wanted to do that for example, for plastic-free oceans and all these kind of things that motivate the people, that bring everybody together. These were the missions. And the other thing was the European Innovation Council. It's a new thing, a new agency that is for disruptive innovation, in particular using deep tech technology, so artificial intelligence, blockchain, or genetics. So all the sector, not only IT, all the sector, manufacturing, and all these kind of things were our focus. And we were focused mainly in Series A and B, so investments of 2.5 billion euros, 10, 20 million euros. This was our focus of the European Innovation Council. As I said, the current situation that is going to last certainly for several months, not years, might need us to rethink about that. But the problem in the European Union is that that plan was already presented to the member states at the European Parliament already in June last year. And then of course we cannot reshuffle everything up and down. So we will see next Wednesday actually the new MFF will be presented, a new proposal, and then maybe there will be more money for research and innovation, in particular innovation, because we see that the ones who are reacting more quicker to the coronavirus is not the research, because that takes longer, but it's the innovation. All the hackathon, matchathon that we are doing is innovators who are coming with short-term solutions, medium-term solutions. And member states are not full. They see that, well, this is the members of the European Parliament. They see that this is working, this new way of doing things in the European Commission that is focusing on innovation, not only on research, is delivering good results. And this might be reflected in the new MFF that will be presented on Wednesday. And as I said, my personal perception is that we need to adapt to the situation. And that we need to take a risk, because we will not have solid studies to base our decisions on good evidence. We might need to take some risk and taking some decisions based on anecdotal evidence. So this is my perception for the future of Horizon Europe and the European Innovation Council.
Thank you, Isidro. And now we have with us a digital expert, an advisor on SMEs and CEOs. And I'm quite interested in talking to you, Alberto Conde Mellado, coming in from San Sebastian, Spain. What have you observed during this period? How have it affected SMEs?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, sharing this time with you. And going to the question, I will say that what I think that all of us have been observed during these last months is the uncertainty that decision makers, CEOs have in their minds, because they need to take, let's say, decision to make the decision-making process, and there is no future prediction because everything is changing more. I see that quicker than ever. So I will say that first of all is uncertainty. The newcomer, for say it some way, what I see in the companies.
Thank you. So have you seen any, what kind of changes in the business models have you seen happening? And do everyone manage to navigate during this crisis, or yeah,
that's a good question. I think that before to start thinking about business model or new business model, we need to understand which kind of steps SME or even a large corporation need to be taken in order to reach a new business model. Because if we think in the new business model, which could be the what of the question, forgetting how to arrive to there, maybe this new business model is not feasible for the company. Why? Because I think that there are at least 3 previous stages or steps that a company must be at least analyzed. First, they need to focus in the internal efficiency. A company need to be efficient, and to the performance of the company internally need to be better than ever. To do that, we need to analyze procedures, processes, and to need we need to be let's say confident with the strength of our company from a production point of view, service provider point of view. So this will be the first step. Secondly, we can add complementary service layer to our traditional business. There is no, let's say, a mandatory condition. You need to change the business model. The traditional business model is not working anymore. No, we can, let's say, complement our traditional business model with new layers of services, or let's say new proposals for customers in order to add more value to our traditional products or traditional business. And third, I will say that it's a good moment to analyze the knowledge stock that companies have in-house. So with this knowledge stock, with the strength of the companies, we can create new services or new products, and they can coexist with the traditional business model. So this way we can go in a, let's say, more easy adaptation to the future. And it's not only about disruption, because this could be, let's say, more risky for a lot of companies. So I will say that the new business model is something sexy, let's say, that it's always a good see, but we need to understand how to reach to this stage. So I will say that previous to thinking new business model, we need to understand how the company is from an internal point of view.
Alberto, thank you for that. It sounds like the crisis, potentially the answer lies within the startup ecosystem in terms of how we can pivot and readapt based on customer demand, changing markets, and that specific risk. Alberto, I have another question, which I'm going to come back to if we have time at the end. Thank you, Alberto. Let's shoot over to Anne Rosenberg, Senior Vice President of the UN Partnerships at SAP, the giant tech firm who we know very well. Good morning, Anne. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
This is
there you are. We can hear you perfectly. Sorry, we missed you out there for a second.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join. Yes, it's a very interesting time we are in. People are more or less kind of saying, people talk about this is a difficult time. I more look at it as it's a new time. And I also think we all need to understand that going to the last couple of months, depending on where you are in the world, depending on when it all started in the station you're in. I'm normally live in New York now. I'm in Denmark. So I think we need to understand there is a COVID economy going on right now. We had the world before COVID, and now we have a COVID economy. And it's not like that COVID economy is going to just end in a couple of weeks. It's going to take very long time. We don't even know how long time it will take. Where I'm right now in Denmark, Denmark has actually opened up, and you can say if you walk the street of Copenhagen now, it more or less look like before COVID, but we all know that it is not like that, and we know that potential COVID will come again when we go into the autumn. So therefore, it is a new world, and nobody knows what that new world actually means. And when we look around the world right now, where big corporations are operating, they are literally operating in part of the world where there's kind of 4 phases, as we all know, that the COVID is, we know the COVID is coming, COVID is spreading, COVID is being contained, and the reopening is happening. So you're dealing with multi-international companies now that is navigating in countries where they are in a reopening stage, or they are in states. If we go into Brazil, if we go into the Latin America market, it's definitely more in a phase 3 where it is spreading and it's been contained. The same thing if you go into Africa or Russia, but where US more or less is going into the reopening phase. The Nordic countries is ahead of that, like the APJ is, but we also know that we are seeing is also back in certain places. So how do you navigate all of this? And I think the first thing you need to understand, which is a lot to take in, is that we all, just like we are on this session this morning here, is that we had a job before COVID, we will have a job during COVID, and we'll have a job after COVID. And whatever that after means, that is the big question. But there's also a lot of good things coming out of this, because in all the work that I do with United Nations, I'm trying cooperation really to bring up their ambitions to become responsible business. So CSR sustainability have been around for many, many years, but it can no longer be like a nice add-on to how you operate your business. It needs to be the core center of your do. So we talked about business models. It needs to be the core of the business model. So beginning of the year, we launched together with the Secretary General Antonio at UN Global Compact, the SDG Ambition Framework. It literally is a framework that take a corporation in the private sector, whatever you're a big corporation, a small corporation, or whatever you're an upcoming startup, that you need to make sure the way you build your business model, that you bring the 17 global goals and the 10 principles by UN Global Compact into the core and center of the business. And you can say before COVID, that was something that a lot of companies were doing, but during the COVID time, companies who have done best have been navigating best to this difficult time we are in, whatever we call it difficult, or we talk it is the time that we are going through. It's companies who have always taken very seriously to be a responsible business. So when we get out on the other side, whatever that means, and whatever the other side, because it all depends on what kind of solution will come around COVID. And we do know, we don't like to talk about it, that it can take years that there is a vaccine, and a vaccine that is distributed in a way that it helps the entire society of the world. But there's a lot of learnings, and I think the biggest learning is that we can't say, we are fine in this part of the world and those part of countries. It needs to be solved for every single person out there in the world. And this is the responsibility for me. What is the biggest learning out of this is that every single private sector company, whatever you are, upcoming startup or you're a big multinational company, you need to take responsibility, not just for your customers or the customers who can afford to buy your product, but you need to take responsibility for all the people who can afford your product, all the people, the entire society. And that is, again, no need, nobody behind. And this is what COVID is learning us. So I think to me it's an exciting time right now, is the tough time, because it will, no doubt about it, accelerate every single startup, every single government, every single private sector will become responsible in anything they will do. The last thing I would like to say about this is that I'm very much an active person in the whole startup ecosystem worldwide, and finally the startup ecosystem get the voice they need in the private sector. Because the middle way, the ecosystem, the accelerated ecosystem of startups and accelerators are working around the world. This is what is helping the private sector now. So I'm very excited about this time. I'm very excited about the future, but I think we all need to understand we live right now in a COVID economy, and we need to navigate that to a future after COVID.
And that was outstanding. You answered every question and more than we could have wished for. Thank you so much for those brilliant words. I hope you were listening at home and took notes. If you didn't, I'm going to sum things up for you very briefly now. And thanks for joining us. We've got to jump off into our next call in 10 minutes time. But just quickly, the things that stood out for me from this were, we keep getting this narrative, this red thread through these live streams about rebuilding. But rebuilding with what? Rebuilding the right way. So rebuild with the SDG goals at the core of what you are doing. I think that is very key. We had some interesting conversations yesterday about that, talking about sort of gender diversity and rebuilding with that at the core as well. I know, Anne, you are a strong advocate internationally on that, but unfortunately, we don't have time for that conversation now. We'll have to get you back on the show another time. Don't leave anyone behind. This period, this COVID economy allows corporates, allows public, private, you name it, to accelerate and have some of the core infrastructure of the startup economy at its basis. We think it can learn from all. Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you so much, Isidro. Thank you so much, Alberto. A short and sweet conversation. We'll be back with what? With 2 mayors on the call. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We'll see you in 10.
Bye.
Dance it off with us. Back in 10. Bye for now.